All right, let's get back to the last hour here on the Dave Elswick Show. I'm going to move into some local stories that are dealing with things that are happening here in Arkansas that a lot of people are asking questions about. There have been people that are out on parole.
No,
probation.
Just because they're having a bad background.
Okay.
Like they've had instances and they've been on probation.
Okay.
Found guilty. Like the one in Walnut Ridge, Logan Rents. They gave him a $500,000 bond this week. Like he literally killed a man at Main Street Pizza. He killed someone.
Yeah.
And he has his record. He has assaulting a police officer. And he was on probation for like 3 years in 2020. He's only like 25, I think. He's not that old. But they put him on a $500,000 bond. They upped the charges to second degree, I believe. And he admitted it. Why would you let him go on bond?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, he admitted to it.
Is he a flight risk?
Like, I don't know. His family is not here. His family seems to be, from what I looked at, he's got a sister who's, I think, trans. I'm not sure, but she looks it. But in, like, Florida, and his mom is in Maryland, I would think that he might be. Yeah. If he's going to prison for murder.
Yeah, if you are guilty, well, I won't even say guilty. If you're going to be tried for murder, you should be kept behind bars,
especially if you admit it.
And until you're tried.
It's not like they don't know.
Yeah,
like there was people everywhere, and the other thing is nobody stepped in to stop it.
I can't talk to that because that's been something going on forever.
I know, and it happened in Hot Springs too. There's a issue. This kid Cumber something. I'll have to look it up, but there's a video going around on Little Rock Hood News, LRH. I don't know if everybody's on that. But this kid stomped this other kid in the face and girls were kicking this kid in the face, and at a gas station. And there were people on there talking about how they went in to just use the restroom and they're scarred for life after seeing it. It was horrific. Like, actually, the kid is in the hospital, like in ICU, like. Some of the friends say his face won't be the same. Like, come on. And nobody was going to press charges. But now they are, I believe, because it's gone so viral. And there's so many videos of it. And whoever's running for sheriff down there, I can't remember his name. Kevin Cooper? Was it?
I don't know.
But anyway, whoever's running for sheriff, he's the one that posted it. And because someone had called him to come down there and help because they couldn't get police or something. I don't know, but it was crazy.
The family is not pressing charges?
They are now, yeah.
Why was there any question
this
about
kid
that?
And then people were posting that this kid had duct taped their kid to a chair, and he's just a bully, the one that stomped him. There were other people there.
Right.
And then that night, there's a picture of them holding guns and flashing gang signs. All these kids that were stomping this other kid. Like, I'm like, what is going on? And then you got down in Fayetteville, at Springdale, the police weren't saying anything about it. Until the family started raising heck, because there's a guy who has a long record with the police, like of even stabbing and domestic violence and stuff like that. Stabbed a girl, got in her car and took off with her kid, wrecked the car, and then left the kid. Now I have reached out to Springdale and police department. They wouldn't answer my comments on their Facebook page. I asked them who I needed to FOIA, but they won't say whether it was a domestic incident or if it was.
Yeah, is that his kid that he?
Yeah, what's the deal? Like, is it domestic or is it random? And he's still at large. We need to know stuff like that.
Yeah,
the Springdale Police Department has been, the things that I've been looking into with them, they are awful. They are awful. Like with the Oscar, I don't know if you saw that about Oscar, the Razorbacks' dad, Oscar Seeley. He was working at Springdale School District as a coach, got caught on several DUIs. He's also an immigrant with a green card, and got caught with several DUIs after he'd been hired, but he'd already had a couple of DUIs.
He was
driving a school bus.
Okay, who was he hired by?
The Springdale School District.
Oh, the school district, yeah.
Like, he's a coach, though. He's driving kids around he was supposed to have a breathalyzer on his car and driving these kids around. And then I asked him, I was like, how is that going to look on your... Could you get deported for that? Because you can if it involves children.
Right.
Oh, I'm a citizen. I've been here since birth. So the school literally sent me his permanent resident ID. Like, he completely lied about that. He lied about being an immigrant. Because I don't think... He doesn't speak... he's from Panama. And so he doesn't speak with an accent. He speaks like he's been here for a while, but his son plays for the Razorbacks, Isaiah Seeley. Basketball.
Okay.
And that's been a big thing. Like, I wrote that story. That's been a big deal down there. And the girl that tried to out it, they harassed her and gave her a hard time just over sports. Like, that's ridiculous, man. This guy was driving kids around and he should have had a breathalyzer on. And y'all worry about the basketball.
Oh, yeah.
It's just insane, the things that have been going on in Springdale.
Well, it's going on all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, we're hearing about it here in the state, but it's happening all over. I mean, and it's because there's people like I was referring earlier, you've been here, to about Don Lemon. Mm-hmm. And what...
A joke.
And he gets on the internet, and I don't have anything against the internet except that it's a double-edged sword. You get bad actors on there, and like Don Lemon.
He's the worst.
And you got him on there. Well, he lies. He lied
when
he was with CNN.
I used to yell at the TV all the time when he was on CNN. When he got ejected, that's what I like to call
No, he got fired.
From CNN, I was like, that's awesome, because he's a joke. He never tells the whole story. It's always about gay rights when it wasn't even like gay anything.
Well, that's because he's gay.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And, he's always trying to cause drama about something that's not even. Like, did you see where Nicki Minaj, she called him out? She called him some choice words, and he got offended by it, but she literally called him what he is. But anyway, but he got offended by it, and he was like, Nicki Minaj doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't understand journalism. I'm like, neither do you, buddy. You're not a journalist. You're a hack.
Yeah. He if you want to be a journalist, you've got to be objective. Yeah. If you're not a journalist.
No, and you have to tell both sides of the story.
You're an advocate if you're not a journalist.
I swear, Dave, now that I'm back in Arkansas, I'm going to push media literacy for the state. These kids growing up need media literacy. They have these phones in their hands when they're not at school. Most of the time they have them when they're at school. You can't tell me those little locker things they bought are going to change anything. They'll have an extra cell phone. They'll probably bring a clone cell phone in, and they'll be using their other phone while they lock their phone. And come on, these kids are smart these days. But they've got them in their hands 24/7, and all this information coming at them, they can't decipher whether it's real or not. If we don't do something about media literacy, our country is going to be doomed.
Well, if we don't do something about people posting erroneous material and knowing that it's erroneous,
right,
we got a problem.
I said that the other day.
And with AI, it's getting even worse.
Yeah, because you cannot trust AI. You have to go back and research.
Yep.
You can use it all you want to help you. Maybe like I use it to help me write and put the story into the correct format, because we all know I'm terrible at AP style. That's why I dropped out of journalism school and went to broadcasting school, because I didn't want to write. But it helps me put it in that thing. But you have to actually look up the facts. You can't just take it because I argue with my AI all the time. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're lying. And then it'll be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for catching that. It's like...
Well, it's because we moved from objective journalism, from that, to advocacy journalism. They couldn't be any more not like each other than anything. I mean, a story would happen, all right, when I was working on newspapers, and you went out and you answered the basic questions: who, what, where, why, how.
You hit the beat,
and all of that, and then you answer all of those if you did, and then if you had some disparities of you don't know if the person who had told you what happened was really giving you the truth or had somehow stretched the imagination a little bit. You went out and got somebody else along with that person to give the other side of the story as well.
Sources.
Yeah. And you named those sources.
Right.
All right.
Every now and then there was an anonymous, but not like every source was anonymous.
You know, if you got an anonymous source, but you got a lot of on the point sources, then anonymous 1 or 2 is all right. Like if you've got a cop that talks to you anonymously, if you can, find out that if you look at some other people that you've got the same information from, and you can use them, then you can get around, as far as I'm concerned, anonymous sources. Advocacy journalism is this. No news happens. All right? Nothing has to happen for an advocate journalist. All they have to do is to see something and say, I don't think that's fair.
Right.
And so what I'm going to do is go out and cover that, and I'm going to prove to you why it's not fair. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to share that with you.
And then somebody else is going to share it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
It's going to get shared, and then it becomes gospel, and it's hard to retract that.
Well, you can't. You can retract it all you want, but nobody will believe what you're saying.
Mm-mm. Or most of the time they don't. They don't even care to retract it.
I always loved the newspaper when they get something wrong and then they retract it, and they got huge headlines on the front page about the story, and then they find out what they published, a good portion of it was wrong, and then they retract it, and they put the retraction in the B section
where nobody reads
on the 7th page, which is the back of the funeral parlor news. That's what they do. They retracted it, they put it in the newspaper, but they didn't put it the same way that they had covered it.
No, they were hoping people didn't see it.
And they allowed people to believe that what they had said was wrong was correct.
Right. Like when I write a story, I try to cover all the bases: the who, the what, the how, the when, the why, and where.
Yeah.
Those are the 6 basic things that make up a story. If you don't have all of that, you need to think, is this the whole story? And if not, you need to go. So if you're watching Fox News, you need to go over to CNN or if you're watching CNN, you need to go over to Fox, or you need to have more than 2 sources of news because people don't do that anymore. They're lazy.
That's always been the problem.
I know.
People are lazy.
But now you don't have to go buy newspapers. You have it at your fingertips.
Well, a lot of times there's no newspaper to buy.
Right. True. We went looking the other day and there wasn't one.
All right. Let's take a break. Then we'll come back. Val Emmons, who's my new producer for my show, was here, and I brought her on over to be on the show. She's learning how to use the board. You who have listened to radio for a long time know what I'm talking about. She's going to make sure that I get on the air and sound good in the morning, and she's going to go out and find people that we're looking to get on. We need to get Scott Jennings on. Scott Jennings is a talk show host here on The Answer from noon until 2 in the afternoons, and he's going to be here Thursday night speaking at Bow Ties and Babies. Let's give him a call today and see if he can spare us about 15 minutes on Wednesday and give us an update on what he might talk about. That's coming up on the Dave Elswick Show. Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Something happened the other day just before Josh Shapiro, who's the governor of Pennsylvania, put out his new book called When We Keep the Light. It's a memoir, and it's a pretty clear idea that he has about what's going on in the country and things of that nature. And in part of this book, the governor is measured in describing his interaction with Miss Harris herself. Okay, remember that Josh Shapiro he was on the short list for vice presidential candidates along with Tim Walz from Minnesota. And they ended up picking up, Tampon Tim and not Josh Shapiro. And the thought process was that the reason they did not take Josh Shapiro was because of him being Jewish. He detailed a contentious vetting process in which Mrs. Harris's team focused intensely on his views on Israel, so much so that at one point he wrote he was asked if he had ever been an agent of the Israeli government. Quote, "Had I been a double agent for Israel," wrote Mr. Shapiro, describing his incredulous response to a last-minute question from the vetting team. He responded that the question was offensive, he wrote, and was told, "Well, we have to ask. Have you ever communicated with an undercover agent of Israel?" the questioner asked him. Dana Remus, a former White House counsel, continued, according to Mr. Shapiro, who recounted, "If they were undercover," I responded, "how the hell would I know?" Ed Morrissey from Hot Air talked about this and said, "Well, we have to ask." Josh Shapiro recalls being told, "No, you really didn't. This query relies on an old and bigoted trope about Jews being inherently disloyal to their own countries, a claim that long predates the establishment of the State of Israel. In Germany, political leaders blame Jews for the collapse in World War I that led to their defeat, using the same ugly claim which got amplified and then industrialized by the Nazis. No one asked that question about being an Israeli double agent out of the blue without having brought into that anti-Semitic mindset." Shapiro strips the mask off the left with his revealing episode in the saga of Camilla of the 107 Days. Let's see whether the protection racket media connects those dots or simply refuses to acknowledge them. Kudos, by the way, to the New York Times for at least making it public. What did you think about that? And think about the whole thing about Jewishness, all right? The Jews are in charge of the banks. The Jews control Hollywood. And I can go on and on. All right, this is anti-Semitism, is what it is, and it's used all the time here in our country, and it shouldn't be used here in our country. People should, as soon as those type of things start happening, you should start saying, "Wait a second, number one, the person doesn't need to answer that question, and number two, you should make sure that should be done." It's sad. It really is. All right, we got news coming up in just a moment, and I'll fill until that time because we're to about 2 minutes before news comes up. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that anti-Semitism because that has really been gaining a lot of traction in our country, and a lot of it is happening within the Democrat Party is where it's happening at. And you need to understand that as well. Democrats have expanded their power in Virginia, immediately moved to prohibit hand counting of ballots. Think about that for a second. So the Democrats get a few extra people elected, and Democrats in Virginia gained seats in the state assembly, won the governor's seat, the lieutenant governor's seat, as well as the attorney general. They didn't waste any time. Geiger Capital reporting Democrats have been in power in Virginia for 48 hours, and they're already introduced a bill to ban the hand counting of election ballots. How's that one for you? Yeah, you got to wonder why someone wants to make counting ballots by hand illegal, that you can't do it. quoting the legislation, requires ballot scanner machines to be used to count machine-readable ballots and prohibits such ballots from being counted by hand for any reason or purpose not specifically authorized by the law. There you go. There you go. No fallback position at all. All right, let's take a break, and when we get back, we'll pick it up again on the other side of news right here on the Dave Elswick Show. All right, yeah, I'm here. I'm going to be here until 11 o'clock or a couple of minutes before. Well, yeah, I'll be here at 11 o'clock because I got to still cut my promo for tomorrow. So I'll still be here. Tomorrow I will have Congressman Hill will join me at 7 o'clock. 7:35, Congressman Westerman will join us. We'll get it set up that we start getting the senators back on here in the very near future as well. All right, so today at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, they're going to hear a case on the Ten Commandments in public schools. And, it's been about 6 months since Governor Greg Abbott of Texas signed legislation mandating the display of the Ten Commandments in his state's public school classrooms. And since then, successive courts have blocked the law on grounds that it violated the U.S. Constitution. The ensuing confusion could end soon and then be cleared up clearly. I mean, we're talking about, the water around a Caribbean island clear, all right, where you can look and see the bottom of the lake or whatever real clearly, and the reason that is because there's no food in the water. If there's a lot of plankton in the water, it turns that tidy bowl blue. That's why the blue color is there. But on Tuesday, the 17 active judges on the generally conservative Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans is going to hear arguments over the Texas law and a similar Louisiana measure signed in 2024. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton had this to say: there is no legal reason to stop Texas from honoring a core ethical foundation of our law, especially not a bogus claim about the separation of church and state, which is a phrase that is found nowhere in the Constitution. Paxton said that in a recent statement. Attorney William Farrell from the Attorney General's office described Senate Bill 10's requirement as a passive display on the wall that does not rise to the level of coercion because students can choose to ignore the poster completely if they wish. Observers are thinking the case may well end up before the Supreme Court. And, of course, here in Arkansas, we're under injunction right now that we can't display the Ten Commandments in the schools. This would go a long way towards clearing that. If it doesn't clear it and make it okay for us to show it, know that that will already be pushed towards the Supreme Court to see if they will hear it and then say what they think about it as well. But that's a main. I can't believe we're still arguing over that one. I mean, we got "In God We Trust" on our dollar bills and our $5 bills and $10. It's on all of our money. It's our national motto: "In God We Trust." Now, is that breaking the law as far as between people who say that that's the federal government saying that they stand, behind God? I don't think so. I don't think so. You hear that. It's not that they say you can't spend any money unless you agree with "In God We Trust." That's never been stated. in the Ten Commandments, I go along with what Paxton said. It's not like the kids go to their rooms and they stand in front of the wall that's got the poster on it of the Ten Commandments, and they must read it, and they're tested on it. That's not what happens. It's as they say, it's a passive display. You're not forced to even know that it's there if you don't want to know that it's there. So, I think that they're on pretty strong legal footing as far as that's concerned. The commentary from townhall.com today is about religious liberty. I'll read it to you and give you something to think about. Chalk up a significant win for religious freedom, this time from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The court ruled that religious organizations have the right to hire people who share their faith, even for non-ministerial roles like administrative assistants or technicians. In other words, faith-based organizations don't lose their religious identity the moment someone steps out of the pulpit and into an office. The decision applies only to religious organizations themselves, not to secular businesses or hospitals. They may operate, but it still matters a great deal. At stake is a basic principle. Religious groups exist to advance a mission grounded in shared beliefs. Every employee contributes to that mission in some way, forcing a religious organization to hire people who reject its core convictions and undermine its very purpose. And that's not smart at all. Kudos to the Ninth Circuit, or as I like to call them, the Ninth Circuit Circus, for recognizing the simple truth. So hopefully it ends there, and it won't have to go to the Supreme Court to be upheld by, as the law of the land. This whole thing about the Ten Commandments, it probably will end up in the Supreme Court. And I would think that we'll get an amicus brief from the Attorney General here in Arkansas about that, standing up for states being able to post the Ten Commandments as well. We got quite a few different stories that have happened through today that I got to find out if Robert Steinbach is going to be with us on Friday so that we can talk about each one of them and talk about the law and what the law has said in the past about some of these different laws, and are we slowly but surely making decisions the way we're supposed to be by what those laws have said and what they say and what that means. In other words, do laws mean what they say or don't they? That's the key. And that's kind of what the Supreme Court is going to have to, they've already, over the last, I would say, 6 years, made some major decisions about gun rights that have happened. And, gun owners can breathe a little easier that the government is not going to take away all of our rights where gun rights come into play. Now you're able to go out and buy a gun and have it for your use in your home and your car and things of that nature. Some other things that the Supreme Court has said is that the federal government, that the 10th Amendment means what it says, that if the law is not made by the government, then it goes back to the individual. As far as, when we talk about freedom of speech and things of that nature, there are certain instances where freedom of speech can be abridged, and of course we all know the argument about you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You just can't go out and yell that. Now you might yell it if there is a fire, and they'll let you, they would expect you to do that, but not if there's no fire. I mean, you can get all kinds of trouble yelling fire when there is no fire, or pulling a fire alarm when there is no fire, because you put people's lives in danger at that point. All right, I'll take our final break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap it all up, try to put a nice little bow on top of it, and I'll mention to you some of the things that we talked about, and that you can go look back up on our podcast about our show, and hear them again, and you'll pick up some good arguments that you can use when you're talking to people to convince them that there's certain things that we should do, there's certain things that we should not do. And then we spent about an hour, if not more, talking about changing the taxation rate here in the state of Arkansas. I think we gave you a lot of reasons why that should happen, and then you can use it to convince your friends, and then maybe they'll vote to make sure that kind of a law, those kind of laws, get passed here in the state of Arkansas. All right, so back here in a moment on the Dave Elswick Show, 101, The Answer. Hey, don't forget, I mentioned this earlier in the show, but it bears, talking about it again, and that is that on Thursday, January 22nd, starting at 6:30 in the evening, Bow Ties for Babies will be going on at the Benton Event Center on I-30 in North Benton. And this is a time for you to sit down and talk to your friends and your fellow conservatives, and then hear a couple of really good speakers that evening in Scott Jennings, who is a conservative commentator. He's on CNN. We have him here on the radio station. You can hear him from noon until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. And then also you get a 2-for-1 for the Bow Ties for Babies on Thursday. Former Kansas governor and U.S. ambassador Sam Brownback will be here to speak as well. Tickets to the event is $125 per person. That includes your dinner, dessert, drink, things of that nature, and hearing the speakers. It's a great price. If you're a business owner, or you have some extra money and you want to buy a table, it's a table for 10. That's $1,250 for a table for 10, and you're going to learn a lot of things, and that's all the money that they're raising from the tables and from people who are going to this. That money is going to go to help the folks at Arkansas's Right to Life. It's going to help fight off, and I'm sure it'll happen again. They'll be running another, piece of legislation to make abortion legal in Arkansas again, and we'll have to fight it off again. And so you want to make sure that that you're doing everything you can to keep abortion illegal here in the state. So Bow Ties for Babies, January 22nd, starts at 6:30, goes to 8:30. Everybody wears a bow tie, all the guys do. And Scott Jennings and Sam Brownback are going to be our special speakers for that evening. All right, one last. I heard that there was a piece of news breaking, and I heard that we had somebody lose their wife from the congressional delegation here in the state. So I'll see if we can't get Val on. She had that information and give it to us here before we wrap it up here on the Dave Elswick Show. So there's a clamor among some on the American right for the United States to pull out of NATO, given Europe's reflexively adversarial response to Trump's Greenland saber-rattling. Whether we should remain in an alliance formed in a very different world back in 1949 is a question that President Trump first raised during his initial term. The question actually has more merit than one might think at first blush. You have to ask what exactly NATO's raison d'etre was to begin with. It's difficult, 80 years on, to recall just how much of a mess Europe was at the time. Much of the continent had been razed by the most lethal of its many conflicts that had occurred, World War I, World War II. Europe was no longer at war, but it was not exactly at peace either. Stalin, a dictator with as much, if not more, innocent blood on his hands than Hitler, had advanced his Red Army all the way through Poland, then Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Bulgaria, and half of Germany. That Soviet presence was massive. Nearly 10 million infantry, backed by tens of thousands of tanks and aircraft. In 1945, the Red Army had become a military colossus that had just annihilated the most professional army in the world. Given this looming threat just over the horizon by 1949, Western Europe needed to band together to offer a deterrent to Stalin's moves that he was making in Europe. And given the circumstances, the only military body capable of giving this new North Atlantic Treaty Organization the muscle was, of course, the United States Armed Forces. While Western Europe was rebuilt under the auspices of the Marshall Plan, American troops, armor, and aircraft kept the Soviets at bay. The mission was performed successfully all the way to 1991, when the Soviet Union, the very threat NATO was created to contain, abruptly collapsed. That was 35 years ago. And yet NATO did not ride off into the sunset with its mission accomplished. Instead, it continued to expand, adding 16 new nations, each creeping closer and closer to an increasingly alarmed Russia, a country that suffered roughly 25 million dead, repelling the last Western invaders from its soil. But why the steady eastward expansion? Well, some NATO supporters agree and argue that Putin's resurgence and his aggression in Ukraine are answer enough. But Ukraine and Russia shares a convoluted history. Ukraine has long been contested land, where its story and Russia's overlap in a region that has seen over 700 conflicts since the fall of Rome. This is not the first time war has raged from Crimea to the Donbass, nor will it be the last. There is no reason for a non-Ukrainian to die fighting for that territory. In fact, the only credible reason to continue our involvement in NATO is that Putin's Russia poses the same danger as Stalin's USSR once did. But today's Russian military is not the Red Army of 1954, in which anywhere from 30 to 35% of its personnel were non-Russians, including 20% Ukrainians. And today Russia is demographically dying. between 1990 and now, owing to the breakup of the Soviet Union, low birth rates, immigration, and early mortality, often linked to alcoholism, Russia's population has shrunk by roughly 3 to 5 million and is around a 2 to 4% decline. Over that same period, the U.S. population grew by more than 95 million, or roughly 38%. Even without the U.S., the EU today has roughly 4 times Russia's population, and history shows that in modern war, population is often the best predictor of who's going to prevail in a protracted struggle. I'll pick it up again tomorrow and bring this up to you. We got to go ahead and take a break. You got the story there. Give us the information. Was it Womack that lost his wife? So we'll keep that in mind, and our prayers go out to Womack about that. He's a great guy. All right, a break. We'll get more coming your way tomorrow. We'll do it at 8 o'clock. I will see you on the radio.